Hello, viewer. I trust you're well, and thank you for joining us once again on Youth County Projects Kenya, a show that seeks to bridge the knowledge and awareness gap regarding youth projects taking place in the 47 counties here in Kenya. All right. So today in the studio, we have Peter Otiende from HAART Kenya, and he's going to share with us on matters human trafficking. All right. If you've not yet subscribed to our YouTube page, kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel, Youth Projects Kenya, our Facebook, follow us, Youth Projects Kenya, Twitter at Youth Project, and on Instagram at Youth Projects Kenya. So we've uploaded the videos on all those social media handles so that you may get to learn more about even the other projects that have been featured on this particular show. So welcome to the studio, Peter. Hello, Peter. How are you?
I'm very fine. How are you, Violet? And good afternoon to our viewers and subscribers.
Good afternoon. Fine, thank you. It's such a pleasure to have you on board. Noting that we are both generals, we both participated in the political leadership and governance program, courtesy of Frederick Ebert Stiftung, Kenya. So it's just a delight to also meet you for the first time on this. So it's such a delight to meet you once on this particular show. It's someone was trying to call me.
It's okay. It's allowed.
All right. Yeah. So kindly introduce yourself to the viewer so that they can get to learn more about you.
Okay. My name is Peter Otiende, and I'm a community facilitator, stroke volunteer at HAART Kenya. HAART Kenya is a non-governmental organization that has been operating in Kenya since 2010 on matters combating human trafficking. And I joined HAART Kenya in 2014 as a volunteer on a particular youth project. And I saw that this was an opportunity for me to learn more on something that concerns protection and of rights of people and protecting other vulnerable people from exploitation. So HAART Kenya has been operating since 2010. It has been operating through Kenya, but it has also extended its outreach level and outreach scope to East Africa. That means Uganda, Tanzania, just trying to incorporate, and a little bit parts of maybe northern Kenya too, to just try to spread the message about combating trafficking, how it manifests, what types of trafficking are there, and how people can be protected from trafficking, and how we can assist victims of trafficking.
All right. So kindly educate us on matters human trafficking, because personally, when it comes to human trafficking, you just don't think that it can happen here in Kenya. Most of us, when we watch movies, we just think it is something that happens in the US, even in Russia, and we think even the perpetrators are Russians, because of the movies that we've watched. All right. But I'd like you to demystify this aspect of human trafficking and how rampant is it here in Kenya and East Africa at large.
Okay, so first of all, I think I need to just share with you a brief description of what human trafficking is. There's a brief description under the Counter Trafficking in Persons Act, which is a policy in Kenya. We also have the Palermo Protocol, which stipulates what human trafficking is. But I'll try to bring the message home by just defining human trafficking as the illegal trade or movement of persons from one point to another for the purposes of exploitation. So key two things are here. That is movement and that is exploitation, which means that movement can be both locally, internationally, and continentally, and from county to one county. To give you a classic example of human trafficking, we've had cases where we've had children probably taken from rural setup, brought to the urban setup to work as house helps, or maybe just to work at home instead of going to school. That's a classic example of human trafficking because there's one thing, there was movement. That person was transferred or transported from one point to another. And then when they get to the destination, there's exploitation, there's child labor. So that is a classic example of what human trafficking is. Because a lot of time you mention trafficking and people think that these are things are not happening in Kenya, and it only involves, cross-border movement. And the most common cases that you've had in Kenya, which have been highlighted mostly by the media, are cases involving people moving from Kenya to Dubai or to Qatar or to Yemen or to other Middle East countries, and then they get exploited. Some of them are tortured, some of them are locked in and harbored in a place and locked, and they go through various forms of exploitation, and it becomes a very difficult task to bring them back home. So those are also cases of trafficking, but we also have cases of trafficking here internally in Kenya, because as long as there's movement and there's exploitation. For example, if I take you, Violet, from Nairobi to Mombasa for the purposes of exploitation. Maybe I've lied to you that there's a job to work at a certain hotel. You're going to get this form of compensation. Then we get there, you're forced into prostitution, you're locked and you're harbored. That is human trafficking. We also have various types of human trafficking, and the most common one forms of exploitation under human trafficking. I'll just mention the three most common. One of them is forced labor, where we have people being trafficked to, and then they're forced to work in farms, they're forced to work in mines. Sometimes the contract said one thing, when you get there, the contract says another thing, and you're forced to work under terms that you did not consent to. We've also had cases of sexual exploitation, where people are moved from one point to another for the purposes of being forced into prostitution. Some of them are even forced to have sexual engagements without their consent, which is equates to rape, which is a form of sexual exploitation. So what happens is sometimes somebody's is being when you're being recruited by these traffickers, they tell you that there's a job somewhere and you're supposed to go. This is the compensation. These are the terms of working. Once you get there, the terms of working change, and then you're forced into having sexual activities and engagements with those people. And sometimes you are locked in a place that you cannot move, or maybe you are threatened that they may take your life away. So there's a lot of things that go on around the issue of sexual exploitation. We also have issues of early child marriage, which most people don't know, but it's a child trafficking issues, because we said with trafficking we look at two things, and that is movement and exploitation. And once a child is moved from their home to another person's home and they start having sexual engagements with them, then that becomes a case of trafficking. We also have another form of exploitation which is common, and that is called organ removal, where you can be trafficked. Violet, even you, everybody is vulnerable to trafficking. You can be trafficked for the purposes of organ removal, where you have these people who maybe there's a black market for selling organs, that is organs, body organs, and somebody can traffic you for the purposes of extracting out your organs and selling them, or sometimes the organs are removed for the purposes of witchcraft and other things. Like there was a very common case about persons living with albinisms around the border of Tanzania. I'm sure maybe you've heard of those case stories where children living with albinism were being kidnapped or abducted and then found dead, and then you find that somebody has peeled off their skin, and sometimes they use it for witchcraft purposes, because they have this common belief that the skin of a person living with albinisms can be a way to success or can make you rich. So we also have other forms of exploitation, like the most common one, and I'm sure, Violet, you've seen it in Nairobi, and that is forced begging. So sometimes the beggars that you see in Tao or in CBD begging, some of them are just not begging for the sake of begging, but they've been placed there by people, and those people are using them to beg, which is a form of exploitation. And what they do is that sometimes they take these vulnerable people, put them in places, and then at the end of the day, they come and collect them, put them in the house. So that by the fact that they are providing them with some welfare support, and that is maybe staying in their houses or shelter or food, they are using these people to get money, which is a form of exploitation when you force someone to beg. Some of them are even threatened to go and beg because they are vulnerable, Some of them have been moved from one country to another and they did not have the proper documents. So there are also issues of being threatened on issues regarding deportations and everything. So in a nutshell, those are some of the common examples on how human trafficking manifests. But that is not just all. We have various forms of sexual exploitation where, especially during this pandemic, you saw how with the .com era, where children have access to internet and regulated internet, where you have traffickers engaging children in online sexual activities, which is also a form of trafficking because the child might not have moved, but the image and the graphic image has moved from one point to another. And sometimes children are also used for the purposes of pornography, and even adults are forced to engage in pornography. And that not only happens outside Kenya, it happens in Kenya, where we had cases in areas of Donholm where children were being recorded as they were dancing naked, and those videos are streamed to other adults from other countries.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for that particular information. Very insightful. So kindly share with us the projects you have implemented with regard to your initiative.
Okay, we have implemented a couple of projects, but first of all, in our organization, we conduct things that are called grassroots workshops, which are supported by Misiria and Mission Kara. That is by going to communities within Kenya, in counties, grassroots workshop, training people about human trafficking. What is human trafficking? The forms of exploitation under human trafficking, types of human trafficking, and how you can protect yourself and report cases of trafficking and also victim identification. We have also worked under another urban refugee program, which was supported by GIZ, which is the German Agency for International Cooperation, we identified refugees from our research. We identified refugees as a vulnerable group to trafficking. And so we thought that it's good to start engaging them so that we can train them on how they can protect themselves and also to advocate for the refugee rights. So that is one of the projects that we did, where we had moral installations. We conducted a couple of radio programs with the refugees and host communities, because we realized that it's not only important to train refugees or to engage refugees, but also to change the mindset of their host communities to see them as people who are vulnerable and who need support and they need their rights protected. We have also had, in partnership with the British Council, implemented a program on safe migration and alternative livelihood option. By safe migration, what we do, we have a component called safe migration, Violet, where we tell people, before you travel, these are the measures that you will need to put in place so that you can prevent yourself from becoming a victim of trafficking. Or these are the measures that you need to put in place so that in case you become a victim of trafficking, it might be easier to assist in your rescuing. And we have a program where we tell you these are the documents that you need to look for. You need to leave photocopies behind. You need this information. You need to look if the agency that is recruiting you is registered with the government. You need to take that information to the embassy so that they can communicate, or the foreign ministry so that they can communicate with the Kenyan embassy in your host country or the country that your destination country that you're going to working, so that in case anything happens to you, there can be a proper channel for conducting follow-up and probably assisting you. So under that program, we were training people about safe migration, but also alternative livelihood options, because we realized that one of the enablers of human trafficking is unemployment and inequality in getting income and everything. So we realized that we need to partner with other like-minded individuals who have programs on livelihood, like, for example, the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, the Women Enterprise Fund, the Weather Fund, on how we can assist in referring the young people that we train on safe migration, or the people who train safe migration, so that they can have an alternative livelihood option. They can go and access these funds and probably initiate income generating activities. The third one that I'd like to mention is on it's a development cooperation agency from Austria. It's called DKA, which supports us on our youth program, which is called Young at Heart. It's a robust youth program that involves training of youth, engaging them in arts, skills development, capacity building opportunities, because we realize that young unemployed people are such a vulnerable group who can be easily deceived by traffickers to get in the trap of trafficking. Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. So kindly share with us the doors your initiative has opened.
Yeah, first of all, I like to take it very much personally because just to share a case story. When I first engaging in this trafficking space, because I was still engaging in other youth-related spaces, just advocating for rights, and it was just for the social good until I came to realize that one of my siblings is actually a survivor of trafficking, and now the fight to combat trafficking became more personal because it was like, if this thing can happen to someone who's so close to me, then it's something that is real and it can happen to anyone, and there's a role that I need to play in terms of combating this vice. So one of the things and the opportunities that engaging in this space has enabled me is, first of all, capacity building, just building my capacity to understand how trafficking manifests, and just to be very conscious on how important supporting survivors and victims of trafficking is. So that is one thing that is so personal, because now I'm so conscious, because as HAART Kenya is a victim-centered organization. That means that we put the interests of the victim first, and we find ways on how to support victims of trafficking. That is one. Another thing is that within my space and the local network that I operate in, and you operate in, because we also train in the same program, is that I've become like a local reference point on matters trafficking, where if someone gets an issue that deals with trafficking, they can easily refer the case to me, and I can take the case to my organization, and then we can decide on how we assist that particular victim, which I think is a good thing, because probably maybe within that same network a few years ago, before I started engaging in this space, people were getting these cases, but they did not know the correct platform or space in which to report these cases and get assistance from the victims. And also, I'd like to say that it has also expanded my partnership scope, where through traveling in different counties, engaging different government agencies, just to give a special thanks to Directorate of Criminal Investigation, who have been very supportive of the work that we do in terms of prosecution of perpetrators of trafficking. And also that has enabled my personal profile and the organization profile to somehow upscale, to elevate, because that engaging with different partners, telling them what you do, sharing of best practices, people seeing the work that you do and channeling their support towards the work you do, I think it's something that has been very instrumental towards not only my own personal growth, but the general growth of the organization, as the only organization in Kenya that specifically deals with human trafficking.
Great. And even we are getting even feedback. Samuel Mudama, he's saying that the session is very, very informative. He's also telling us that he's currently working in Afghanistan with an American company, and they are very strict on human trafficking. They even conduct random questioning on how we were recruited. All right. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for that information. That's a very best practice, but that I hope that maybe even international institutions that are recruiting Kenyans should be doing, just conducting those random questioning, because what happens at trafficking, sometimes violent, is that I can take you and go to work in South Africa. The first 6 months, things are okay, things are moving okay. Then things start changing. You start being exploited. Maybe the things that you agreed within the contract are not being fulfilled. And now you find yourself, you become a victim. After 6 months, things are very good. So thank you for that feedback, Mr. Samuel.
All right. So kindly share with us about the team at HAART Kenya.
The team at HAART Kenya, I'm very grateful and very privileged to work with a very team of what can I say, very, very diverse, very flexible people who have a lot of experience from the different projects that they have been engaging, and people who are very passionate from their work. So what happens at HAART Kenya is that within the UN 4Ps, we have a program on prevention, protection, policy and prosecution, and partnership. So each and every particular department, like for me, for instance, I work under the prevention team, which is under my very able program manager, who is Winnie Mitevu, who is a program manager, and who is a deputy program manager and the program officer in charge of the prevention department. I also have a team of other 4 people who work in the prevention department. We have a protection department where also, I forgot to mention that we are the first organization to establish a shelter for victims of trafficking in Kenya, which I think is a very great milestone that I cannot forget to mention. So we have a team dealing with protection, just looking at the welfare of the victims and how to assist victims. We have a team on policy and prosecution. They follow up on cases, reported cases, take cases to court so that we can get justice for the victims, compensation for the victims. And then in terms of partnership, which is basically handled by all the departments from the management level to the board of trustees. We have a very efficient team. So I like to say that the thing that makes us work good as a team is that our approach is usually that we work in a cross-cutting manner, where the prevention and the protection team and the management and the finance team and the HR work together, because we all have a particular cause and goal and a specific objective towards combating trafficking. We also have a CEO, we have a program manager, and with all the support that we've been receiving, I can say that HAART Kenya is a very great organization, and the reason that I've been here for all these years is because of the support that I see they give to the victims and also their staff members and also external consultants on how we can work together to combat this issue of trafficking.
Mm-hmm. So viewer, if you have any question you'd like to ask Peter, kindly go ahead and type in the comment section so that we can be able now to read the question to him in this particular live broadcast. So what message oh, wow. So Louis Otieno is saying, good work, Peter. Happy to also be working with you. Very informative session right here.
Nice. So Louis Otieno is also a colleague and is very instrumental towards the work of trafficking. He is an excellent community facilitator, and we've been working in partnership with him just to try to create awareness regarding trafficking. He's been training government officials from one county to another, from Kenya to Uganda, and just to amplify his work ethic and how he's been instrumental to this organization. And that is the team that I work with, people who are very passionate towards this vice and are looking to put on all their efforts towards fighting trafficking.
Okay, all right. So we are coming to the end of the broadcast. So kindly, what is your message to the African youth? Both the Kenyan youth and the African youth. And lastly, take this opportunity to also pitch to a potential donor.
Thank you very much. My core message to the African youth and to the Kenyan youth is that we need to see the issue of inequalities as a collective struggle and how this impacts even other forms of exploitation like trafficking. Like, for example, from the researches we've done, we've found that unemployment issue, the income inequality, GBV, and any other thing regarding human rights can be an enabler of trafficking. So my message is that we need to come together to champion for human rights, and not human rights for only one particular cause, because it's cross-cutting. We need to find avenues to champion for human rights, and most urgently, we need to hold government accountable, because at the end of the day, we pay taxes, and it's the government that's supposed to protect its citizens from any forms of violation. We need to hold governments accountable. We need to get into these spaces. We need to get in the decision-making spaces, apart from just getting out in the streets and creating awareness. We need also to effectively and intentionally and strategically get into the decision-making table so we can make policies that are friendly to us and other vulnerable people in the community. And I think that's a message that I also want to share with the African youth, because trafficking, it's a global pandemic. Like I said, after drug trafficking and arms trafficking, it's the third in the world in terms of trafficking, that is human trafficking, which is a national crime. So I'd like us, especially for the people who engage with the African Union and go to those places, to just amplify the issue of combating human trafficking and to have governments commit to the protocols and the continental protocols, the international protocols and the local protocols, and just support effective policy implementation. And most importantly, let's be aware of the plight of the survivors and victims of trafficking. Let us empower the survivors of trafficking. Let us create spaces where survivors of trafficking can have their own voice and they can channel out their concerns, because at the end of the day, survivors play a crucial role towards combating trafficking, and these are vulnerable people who have been exploited, and we need to find ways on how to protect them. On terms of partnership, I'd like, and this is a very, very strong call, Violet, to the government and at the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. We now have a National Assistance Trust Fund for Victims of Trafficking. Kindly, HAART Kenya has been a very instrumental organization towards supporting victims of trafficking. And it's very unfortunate that ever since the establishment of this particular fund, HAART Kenya has not been recognized or identified as a key instrumental organization that needs to be supported so that we can be able to support victims of trafficking even more. So my call is to especially the government and at the Department of the State Department for Social Protection. Kindly, we need to find ways of supporting HAART Kenya with the National Assistance Trust Fund so that they can be able to support more victims of trafficking, because we have a lot of victims, we get a lot of cases. Sometimes we are overwhelmed with cases because we do not have the sufficient financial or human resource support to assist those victims. So that is one thing I'd like to advocate. The final thing is more investment on issue of mental health, because that's an area that requires a lot of resources. You find where a lot of survivors and victims of trafficking have mental health issues because they are the issues of to deal with trauma out of the exploitation that they went through. So we need more investment in that space. I can see a question from Samuel. Will you kindly allow me to respond to it?
Louis has already responded.
Very nice, very nice. So that was my message, and just to encourage this platform that you're using, Violet Beauty. Thank you for this opportunity again, and let's continue amplifying the youth voices and the amazing things that young people are doing at their grassroots level towards elevating or towards eliminating all forms of exploitation. Because at the end of the day, we need to live in a world which is free of trafficking. And trafficking should be recognized as a criminal issue and a human rights issue, and not only just as an international issue, as most people thought, but also as a local issue that we also need to be aware of, and we need to report cases of trafficking.
All right. So thank you for taking part in this show, Youth Projects Kenya. And even me personally, I've come to learn more about human trafficking from this interview. So viewer, we've come to the end of the show. So thank you, Peter, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Violet and Betty, and continue with the good work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So thank you, viewer, for watching this particular show. Thank you for taking your time to be part of this informative session. Join us next week, even as we interview another amazing guest who's going to share with us the project that they are implementing here in Kenya. So, asante and God bless.